Hello, everyone. I am so excited to have all of you here. Wherever you're joining us in the world, welcome to Inclusive Product Week. I'm your host, Diane Lebenz, Director of Design at Code for San Jose and UX UI Designer at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. If you tuned in last night, welcome back. Let us know in the chat what your favorite sessions were or some of the fun things you learned. If you're joining us for the first time, we're so thrilled you're spending your evening with us. Today marks the 10th anniversary of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, a movement that was created by yesterday's keynote speaker, Jennison Ascension, to challenge our own perceptions and unlock barriers to access. 1 billion, with a B, people worldwide have disabilities and are underserved by digital products that many of us take for granted. And that's actually an underestimation of how many people cannot have the correct access to the products that we all love and use. Of course, accessibility is only the tip of the iceberg. Accessibility is a component of inclusion, and inclusive experiences take into account the full range of human diversity: ability, background, race, culture, location, age, just to name a few. And to dive deeper, it also means that we include the people who we design for into the process to create better experiences that fit everyone. The emphasis is on designing, developing, and creating with people, and not off of our own biased assumptions. As designers, developers, marketers, project managers, researchers, data scientists, technologists, we all have a responsibility and a duty to ensure that no one is left out of the experiences that we design and build. Today, we are celebrating with an inspiring keynote speaker, who you'll hear from in a bit, and dozens of breakout sessions with incredibly talented presenters and practitioners, all with a goal to get you thinking, talking, and learning about digital access. By being a part of Inclusive Product Week, you have taken the first step, a really important step, and becoming aware and more aware of the ways that you can make our virtual world a better and more inclusive place. And because of that, we would like to say thank you. You could have chosen to do anything else with your evening, but instead you're here, and that is what makes you so special. Now, before we get into today's program, I just have a few important details I'd like to address. First of all, we have a code of conduct. Inclusive Product Week is brought to you by Code for San Jose, a Code for America brigade. And we want to make sure that we are creating a safe and respectful environment for everyone. Details about our code of conduct can be found in the reception area, the place that you landed when you first entered the event, and in Slack. We're very serious about this. Anyone who breaks the code of conduct will be immediately removed. If you have any concerns for yourself or others, reach out to the team immediately and hop in our Slack. Captioning will also be available for all sessions, and if you're experiencing any issues, please let the team know as soon as you can, and we can provide personalized assistance with that. And if you missed yesterday's session or you're looking to rewatch a session, don't worry, recordings will be available on our YouTube channel and on the website after the conference ends. We'll send an email so you can look out for that, or you can just keep refreshing our website until I appear, but don't do that. And now I'll hand it over to my teammate, Zach, who will talk about today's schedule. All right. Welcome.
Hey. Zach. Hey, everyone. I'm Zach. I'm a volunteer for San Jose and a moderator for Inclusive Product Week. I'm really excited to be part of this community and here with you all today. That said, I did want to share a few things that we have stored for you. First, we have some amazing speaker sessions planned, and although you might not be able to watch all of them today, they will be recorded and shared as well as hosted on our YouTube channel and website sometime after the conference. Second, we do have a Slack channel where you can continue the conversation with speakers and other attendees. These channels will be shared in the chat towards the end of each session, so you can jump right in and continue that conversation. There's also a channel for other activities we have planned, so you can ask questions and learn more, like maybe about the games that we have. Also, we have multiple ways to network tonight. Hopin offers one-on-one networking. If you click on the networking tab on the left, it'll randomly connect you with another attendee by clicking, and you'll be you'll be together for a couple of minutes, and then you can always connect with the individual further by clicking on their profile on Hopin and by requesting a meeting or by inviting them to a video call. And that's all facilitated on Hopin, so you don't even need to leave or use a Zoom link or anything like that. In addition, we also have some things going on in the expo area. You're going to see all kinds of different booths that you can interact with, including booths from our sponsors, a booth for a game that we're hosting, Crazy Juicy Reel, and booths for our Zen Zones. Our Zen Zones are relaxing safe spaces where you can go and relax between sessions, and they're also themed. So there's one featuring sea life. There's another with that's kind of by the river with birds. We also have one focused on yoga and another on stretching exercises. In addition to Zen Zones, starting at 7:30 p.m., Code for San Jose will be showcasing some of our projects in the expo booths. So you can join our project leads as they'll be presenting their project overviews, our demos, and recruiting new volunteers. So you can get, you can join the community if you'd like in another way. We also have some incredible after-party events planned, including more networking opportunities. We have a Zoom session starting at 8 where you can group network. We're going to be hosting the game Among Us. If you're new to the game Among Us, you'll need to download the game and install it on your phone to participate. The instructions can be found in the Among Us Slack channel if you're interested in joining that. And that event will be happening on Hopin, and you can feel free to share your camera or keep it off. It's all up to you. Lastly, our biggest after party event by far is the game Crazy Juicy Reel that I mentioned earlier. Jed and Sophia are a group of facilitators, coaches, board game designers, and the creators of Crazy Juicy Reel. More importantly, they're two people who believe in the power of great conversations to bring us all a little closer together. Crazy Juicy Reel has been played by thousands of people in over 60 countries, from startups and teams at some of the world's most successful companies, including Volvo, Zoom, and Upwork. I'm really excited to hand the stage over to Jed and Sophia to share a little bit more about their game.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, Zach.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jed.
My name's Sophia. We are the creators of Crazy Juicy Reel and the hosts of your after party tonight at 8:30 PST. We're just going to spend a few minutes now telling you a little bit about Crazy Juicy Reel in the background. So we're going to start with a question. We want to hear your thoughts in the chat. So I know if you go to event and then chat, I think you can just type there. And the question is, what do you think is more important to your longevity? Is it the amount of exercise you get? Is it your income? Is it the quality of your relationships, or something entirely different? What do you think is most important to your longevity? You can pop the answer into the chat, and we'll just read a few as they come in. So just type into the chat where you click event and then chat.
Quality of relationships. We know there's more than one person in the crowd. Maybe you're thinking.
Zach, we know that you're there. You were just on. We're going to come back to that a little bit later, and stay tuned for the answers.
Okay, we'll read out a few others as they come. So, 5 years ago, we recognized that we had a problem, right? And it was a problem in our lives, but it was also a problem in the lives of our friends and our family and our coworkers. In today's world, a lot of us are busy, right? We're constantly stimulated by something. And if we're not careful, sometimes the things we care about most can fall to the bottom of our lists, right? Things like spending time with our loved ones and knowing really who they are, right? Their dreams, their fears, and their hopes. Maybe this is something you can relate to. And sometimes even when we do carve out the time for a Zoom call or a hangout, I don't know about you, but we can leave those conversations feeling a bit flat.
Because it's so easy to slip into small talk and updates, even with the people that are closest to us. I mean, how often have you had a Zoom call where you end up talking about the latest Netflix series or what new diet you're trying? So for me, too often, and I feel like that's a problem. And studies show that that's a problem. It shows that the closeness of our relationship has a huge effect on us, and maybe even bigger than some people think.
All right, so that question about longevity and the best predictor for how long we're going to live, there were a few different guesses in the chat, and you guys were pretty good, actually. It turns out exercise is number 5, is the number 5 predictor for longevity, but number 2 is friendships. And number 1 is social integration, right? Being part of a community. So this stuff is really important. And when we came across this problem in our lives, we knew we had to do something about it. So we started to build a way to connect more easily with our friends and our family, right? And also complete strangers. And so over the last 5 years, that project became Cozy Juicy Real. And it's a board game with a mission to create an inclusive world of trust, fun, and connection. And over the last 6 months, we've played Cozy Juicy Real since launching with thousands of people in 61 countries. And we'd love for you to get to play. We're opening it up tonight to anyone in this community at 8:30 PST. We're going to put the link to the Zoom room in the chat now.
There we go. So everyone should be able to see that in the chat.
If you click that now, you'll just get the waiting room. But at 8:30 PST,
8:30.
We'll be there.
You can also get the link in the hop-in schedule. It's on there. And also in the Slack channel. There's a Slack channel where you can find us there. And we're happy to have a chat. We have a booth if you want to just talk to us and ask us any questions. But we want to thank you all for the work that you do. We are so honored to be here. And we look forward to seeing you in just a few hours.
All right. Diane, we'll pass the stage back to you.
Thank you so much, Ed and Sophia and Zach. You are not going to want to miss Cozy Juicy Real. That, again, starts at 8:30 p.m. tonight. They shared the Zoom link. But if you go ahead and visit their booth, they will also be there from 6 to 8 today to answer any questions, sort of walk through how they've created the game. So I would definitely encourage everyone to come to the after party. It's going to be lots of fun. Don't forget to take our poll. So we have a question. We're just curious about all the attendees that are here, and we want to know what sectors you have experience in. So if you click the poll in the event tab, you'll be able to go ahead and take that and let us know. Throughout the conference, you might get a little modal that will ask you for your feedback. We are so curious to hear what our attendees and speakers think of this event. So if you can, please take a moment to let us know. How did you like Inclusive Product Week? Would you attend next year if we did this again? So give us some feedback. That would be great. And before I start to introduce Michelle, I did want to take a moment to thank my amazing volunteer team. They have been incredibly instrumental in making this event happen. Anyone who actively volunteers know that it can be difficult trying to juggle your day job while volunteering and also having a life, but they have been extremely instrumental and passionate. And if you see them on Slack or moderating a room, please say thank you. And just so everybody knows, sessions start at 6, and you can find sessions in the Sessions tab. You can also see what sessions are happening if you go into the reception area, which has the home icon. You can see which sessions are happening live, and sessions will be open to hop in it, no pun intended, for the scheduled start time. While you're waiting for a session, don't forget to check out networking and expo booths. We have amazing Code for San Jose projects to demo. There are so many awesome civic projects, and if you would like to get involved and volunteer, Code for San Jose is such a great way to give back to the community. Our volunteers have done everything from helping with COVID response to creating open disclosure, which is a product that allows you to see where the money is going in government, and just to name a couple. So check out those projects. All right. While we get started and transition time, yeah, please tell us in the chat. I see everyone, Aditi and Rachel. Yes, you're so excited for day 2. Tell us what you're excited about, what you learned. I'd love to see some activity in that chat. And if you have not already, join us on Slack. Like Zach mentioned, you can find the link in the reception area. And to get to the Slack channel, just click on that join link and you'll be in. You'll be able to continue conversations after a session has ended. We'll keep the workspace open for quite a bit, and that is a great way to connect with other attendees, learn about resources that are available to you, and just have fun. All right. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest of the hour. So our keynote speaker today is Michelle Tong, and Michelle is a product manager, civic technologist, and community builder whose work has been recognized by Apolitical, Bloomberg, Cities, GovLoop, and Code for America. She's currently the senior product manager at NAVA, a public benefit corporation dedicated to radically improving how government serves people. Previously, Michelle pioneered user-centered, agile approaches in the city of San Jose, with the goal of improving city services for over 1 million residents and 60,000 businesses. Michelle has been busy. She found her way to civic tech through the Code of America Brigade Network. As co-founder and former captain of Code for San Jose, and in previous lives, Michelle worked as a circuit designer, project manager, and urban economics consultant. She holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and feminist studies from Stanford University, and a master's in urban planning from the University of California, Berkeley. Michelle lives in Somerville, Massachusetts, and is thrilled to still be able to join the occasional Code for San Jose event remotely. And Michelle, we are also thrilled to have you in our remote Code for San Jose meetings as well. Please give a warm welcome to Michelle as she joins our on stage.
Hi, everyone. I'm really honored to be here with all of you, talking to you this evening about why inclusion is essential in government services and also why government is essential to the field of inclusive design. And let me just get my slides set up here. Might need some technical assistance. The share my screen icon does not seem to be enabled. Diane, do you have any suggestions for me? I'm not seeing an enabled share screen.
Yeah, let me see if stopping share will help.
Perfect. All right, and there we go. Let me get rid of the drive. There you go. Okay, so we're going to talk about why inclusion is essential in government services and why government is essential to the field of inclusive design. So let's get started. Now, first, it is Thursday, so I thought I was justified in providing a throwback Thursday photo. this is the first ever Code for San Jose event. It was a civic hack night, a humble event with less than 20 people in downtown San Jose in March 2014. So fast forward to today, more than 7 years later, Code for San Jose has hosted hundreds of events, and this is probably, the event that you're at right now is probably the most ambitious event that Code for San Jose has ever hosted, with the number of participants and the range of speakers and the complexity of this super cool virtual platform that I'm still figuring out. So I also really want to thank all of the volunteers who've put in clearly so many hours to pull this event together for free for all of us to learn from each other and connect with each other on such an important topic. So thank you. And I also want to thank all of you for being here, and I want to warn you that Code for San Jose events can be transformative, hopefully in a good way, because it was actually an event just like this one that really changed my career path about 8 years ago, back in 2013. One auspicious day, I showed up at my first Code for America Brigade event in Oakland, and that really set me on a path that Diane so graciously described just now in my bio. It felt a lot more like stumbling along and figuring out my way, but it led me to co-found Code for San Jose with Kaylin Gallagher, have the opportunity to start a digital services team at the city of San Jose, and then eventually to my current role at NAVA, where I work with state and federal government agencies to build services that are simple, effective, and accessible to all. So I'm really curious and excited to find out what new things this event will spark for all of you. And the perspective that I'm going to share today comes from working for the past 8 years in this exciting new field that's sometimes called civic tech or gov tech or public interest technology. And very transparently, one of my goals today is to get those of you who aren't in that field really curious and excited about potentially joining it and contributing to the field of civic tech. And if you are already in the civic tech, then I salute you, and I hope you will feel affirmed by what I'm about to share, the stories that I'm about to share. So the first part of my story is about how government services are essential. So first, as an exercise, I would love it if you would all go to the stage chat and type in the first government service that comes to mind. I'm just going to type this as a prompt in here. What's the first government service? Like, what's the last government service you interacted with or helped a family member interact with? Any ideas? So there actually, would love to see what comes to mind for you guys when you think about government services. Oh, public schools there, that's one of them. There's actually hundreds of government services. Might be hard to think of one in particular, but here are a few that come to mind for me. Yes, USPS, EDD, there we go. So at all three levels of government, federal, state, local, governments provide services that are essential for daily life, for having basic needs met, for receiving help from the social safety net, and for participating in our democracy. So we have things like becoming a citizen, receiving health care, sending mail. I see someone put USPS in there, paying your taxes, getting a driver's license, signing up for vaccine notifications, receiving family and medical benefits at the local level, getting a permit to open a business, speaking at a city council meeting, reporting a neighborhood issue, voting. These are all services that are critical, and the impact is really huge when you look at the number of Americans who depend on these services and who are impacted by whether the government designs these services inclusively or not. Love the brainstorming I see in the chat. So, for example, 61 million Americans rely on Medicare, which is a federal health insurance program for people age 65 and over and people with long-term disabilities. 40 million Americans every year use SNAP, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, to put food on the table. And you may know this program as food stamps. This is the website for the state of Massachusetts, where I live now, for applying for SNAP benefits. And 160 million Americans voted in the last election, thanks to the hard work of local election officials in 10,000 different jurisdictions across the country at the local and municipal level. So what happens if people are excluded from government services? At this scale, you can see how inclusion becomes especially important, because even if a small percentage of people are excluded from using your service, or they have an experience that doesn't feel welcoming to them, like it's designed for them, then that's millions of Americans we're talking about who are hindered in their ability to benefit from a government service or feel like they're able to truly participate in their government. And these users don't have a choice to receive the service from a different organization. If you live in the city of San Jose, you need to get your building permit to open your restaurant from the city of San Jose. You can't just choose another organization the way you might be able to choose a different event platform or video conferencing tool if one is more inclusively designed than the other. So what that comes down to is that government must serve everyone. Government must serve everyone. And, you know, I have a hunch that the folks who are at this event, we would all agree that all tech products should serve everyone. And I think it can also be true that government should be held to an even higher standard. And in fact, there are standards in place that reflect this value. So here's a few examples. For the past 20 plus years, Section 508 has established accessibility as a priority at the federal level of government, and it's had a really big impact on digital accessibility, both in the public sector for public services as well as in the private sector. There's a screenshot here of the text of the law that brought this about. Basically, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 prohibited discrimination on the basis of disability in federal programs. And then in 1998, it was amended with Section 508, which required federal agencies to make information technology accessible to people with disabilities. So that was a long time ago. The internet was a very different place back then. Digital products were very different. These rules were actually refreshed pretty recently in 2017 and became synchronized with other accessibility standards, such as the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Another dimension of inclusivity, which we're going to talk about more later, is language accessibility. So a lot of state and local jurisdictions have language access laws, which require services to be delivered in specific languages. So here's a snippet about Local Law 30, which is from New York City, and it requires all city services to be translated into 10 designated languages and to have telephonic interpretation in at least 100 languages. So those 10 designated languages are Spanish, Chinese, Russian, Bengali, Haitian, Korean, Arabic, Urdu, French, and Polish. If you've ever worked on a localization effort, you know what a huge lift it is to take, you know, hopefully very usable, easy to understand content in one language and then translate it into 1, 2, let alone 10 different languages. So by now you might be thinking like, yeah, standards are great, but like, does government really have the ability to deliver services that meet that standard of accessibility and inclusivity? I'd love for you all, you know, to also share like, what was your best or worst experience with government services? You can do that in the stage chat. Like, did you have an experience that exceeded your expectations? Did you have an experience that frustrated you? You know, I think it is true that government has a reputation for often putting residents through confusing and frustrating processes that don't even seem to meet basic standards of usability. There are some really bad experiences out there that people have with government services. But it's such important work. The field that I'm in of civic tech or public interest technology, whatever you want to call it, it's all about bringing practices that we all value, like agile human-centered design, to improve these services that we've been talking about. And it's an incredible opportunity to make an impact, because if you can make something just a bit better, you're improving it for tens of millions of Americans. And here's an example of a potentially overwhelming government process that I experienced last year and really exceeded my expectations. I applied for citizenship. I'm actually Canadian, but I've lived in the US for many years. And when I finally got around to applying, it was because it was such an easy digital application process, and it was reassuring and easy to follow. I did it all from my kitchen table. I didn't even have to go into the post office or mail a check. And I knew that that was due to the efforts of dozens of designers and technologists and product managers who worked for years inside of government agencies to transform that process. Yeah, it's super cool to see someone sharing that, like, someone said that the DMV site was amazing, but the experience in California is frustrating. Yeah, and the EDD experience, getting unemployment services, there's a lot of work to be done. There's certainly a lot of challenges to transforming how services get delivered. These are huge organizations we're talking about. The processes are often decades old. The processes like predate the internet. But we are seeing that government is building the capacity to develop modern agile software in the government agencies that we and other organizations like us partner with. And the really exciting thing about that is we're seeing that government can lead the way in inclusive design. In fact, I would argue that government must lead the way in inclusive design in certain ways, because it's much different to design for 100% of your population than to design for 90 or even 95% of the population. And that's why I think the work of building the capacity to build human-centered, inclusive services in government is so important to the overall goals of inclusive product design. And to show what I mean, I'm going to share 3 different case studies from state, local, and federal government. And these are all involving different aspects of inclusive product design. And what I think is noteworthy about these stories is that these teams are, I think, really pushing the envelope and like really exploring what inclusive design looks like in government. They're also doing it in a more constrained environment with more regulations, smaller budgets, and probably smaller teams than many tech companies that make the products that we use every day. These are teams in government. They're not actually teams that I participated in, but I'm here to like showcase and tell the story of their work. So case study number 1 is about performance and inclusive design on the state of California's COVID-19 site. So first, like, to set a baseline, I want to start by saying that a lot of private sector tech products, they get to make assumptions about their users' devices and internet speeds, because when you're focused on product market fit, that means you get to decide what segment of the market you focus on. So if you want to focus first on only people who have the latest iPhone, you can do that. So for example, you might have seen a message like this. This application requires iOS 12 or later. Consumer apps can choose to serve users who only have a fancy newer smartphone. And if you don't have a smartphone that's supported by the app, then too bad, you just can't use that service. Or what about this one? Your internet connection is unstable. Many consumer apps will require users to have fast, stable internet connections. They want to deliver all their content in the flashiest way possible, and that requires, high-speed internet. But government services for vulnerable Americans can't assume those things, because in government, you must serve everyone. So way back in March 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic started, the state of California knew that performance and accessibility were paramount for them to be able to reach all Californians with critical information about what was happening with the pandemic and what to do. There was a huge scramble to find information about how the guidelines were changing, and in fact, that's still happening today. So this website from the state of California is and remains the single source of truth for 40 million Californians. You might even have visited this website yourself. So the team recognized that they needed to develop a reliable, understandable source of information. They also had to build the first version of the site in 4 days. But what they did while they were doing that was they prioritized speed when making implementation decisions, along with other aspects of accessibility. But they made technical decisions that prioritized the performance of the site. They went out to the store and bought the cheapest like feature phone that they could and tested their website on that phone on a low bandwidth connection. And even today, over a year later, they continue to run audits against code changes to make sure that they're maintaining high performance. As a result, the site loads in 2 seconds, even on a low bandwidth connection with a low-end device. And here's a quote from the senior engineer, Aaron Hans, leading that work. He said, "Performance is an equity issue. You're deciding how many bytes go on the wire, and someone has to pay for those." So his point is it's important to remember that many of the people accessing your site aren't doing it from a MacBook Pro with a broadband connection. And when you're asking people with less capable devices to do things like execute a lot of JavaScript, it could take so long to become interactive that the page is useless, or it could even crash their device. So you can learn a lot more about the great work of this team. There's a link to the blog post here. These slides will be shared later, so you can access all the links. You can also watch a video. Aaron Hans, the engineer I just quoted, gave a presentation at the Code for San Jose Civic Hack Night last year. They have some great public documentation. Aaron Hans is also on Twitter. The California Office of Digital Innovation is on GitHub, so you can check out their work, and they're hiring. So I think they're hiring for some full stack engineering roles. So go check that out. My second case study is at the local level. It's super near and dear to my heart because it's at the city of San Jose, and this work was led by some of my colleagues who I have a tremendous amount of respect for what they pulled off in this area, especially during the last year, during the pandemic. And it's about improving language accessibility for local government services. So we already talked about how cities like New York have laws to ensure that government services are translated into the languages spoken by residents. But in contrast, I have to say, in the private sector, you see successful companies that really have huge scale, but they're not really doing that much about language accessibility relative to what governments are doing with fewer resources. So you might have heard of Lyft, for example. I use Lyft. It's a great service. It's available in over 600 cities in the US and Canada. They're valued at $15 billion. They raised $600 million back in 2018. But I went to go check out what kind of language access they have. And it turns out their app is available in Spanish, French, and Portuguese. So 4 languages total, including English. And that's great. But it's also a lot less than the 10 languages that are required for New York City. I also noticed it's not available in Vietnamese, which is one of the 3 most common languages spoken in San Jose. And Vietnamese is actually especially tricky for machine translation. It doesn't translate well, or there's not a lot of content that Google Translate in Vietnamese tends to be poor quality. So this created a challenge for the city of San Jose, where they really tackled this challenge of language accessibility with a lot of determination, ingenuity, and scrappiness. Starting with their 311 services. So 311 services are how residents in many cities interact with their government for doing things like reporting potholes, getting streetlights repaired, reporting illegal dumping. In San Jose, the city receives an average of 572 requests per day, every day of the year. And here's a picture of the web app, the English version, for accessing those services. So here's the thing, diversity is one of San Jose's defining characteristics. 39% of San Jose residents were born outside of the United States. 57% speak a language other than English at home, with Spanish and Vietnamese being the most common. And 1 in 5 residents have low English proficiency. So the city of San Jose wanted to make their digital 311 service available in Spanish and English. But the need was they wanted that translation to be high quality because this was about building trust with residents. So having a really shoddy free Google Translate, just using Google Translate and slapping that onto the site when the words didn't necessarily make sense, that wasn't going to cut it. They could have used human translation, but human translation can be slow compared to like the rate at which these requests are coming in. So ideally, you want someone to be able to submit a request in Vietnamese or Spanish, have that be translated to English so that an English-speaking city staffer can respond to it in English, but then have that translated back into the person's preferred language. So for machine translation, obviously would have some advantages there, but it's so low quality. So what they did was they decided to pioneer the use of machine learning, and they trained a custom language translation model for San Jose Government Services. They collected thousands of sentence pairs in Spanish and Vietnamese that were vetted by bilingual experts in the city, and they were customized terms. So it's not just translating words like apple or hat. They were figuring out what's the right translation for the word pothole in Vietnamese, and not just any Spanish or Vietnamese, but the Spanish or Vietnamese that's spoken in San Jose, which is based on like cultural, historical, regional factors. The result was that they were able to improve translation quality compared to free Google Translate in all directions, Spanish to English, English to Spanish, Vietnamese to English, English to Vietnamese, by 22% to 51%. So human evaluators rated the custom model against the free translation model, and the custom model had vastly Spanish versions 311 digital service. Can you all still hear me? Can I get a thumbs up? My headphones just spoke at me.
Good, Michelle.
Okay, awesome. This is the only known example of custom translation models with machine learning being used to improve language accessibility of government services. And the city of San Jose isn't stopping there. They are now doing an accessibility audit for all San Jose 311 touch points. They're also looking at other barriers and ways to barriers for residents to access city services and looking at ways to increase adoption. And you can learn more. There's a really great article that summarizes the work that the city of San Jose did. It's by Julie Kim, who's a product designer at the city of San Jose, and the article is called Better Language Translation Through Machine Learning. You can also follow her on Twitter. So now we're getting to my final story, which is about how the US web design system is making it easy to build accessible mobile-friendly government websites. So talking about accessibility at scale, I'm going to start with, again, like, what do the big tech companies do about this sometime that isn't quite at the standard that we might expect? On your left here is an article from June 2020 about the public revelation that Twitter, which is a 15-year-old company with 330 million active users, relied on volunteer employees to improve the accessibility of their features. So that was a little disappointing, but to their credit, Twitter announced a few months later, September of last year, that it was going to create 2 new teams to get dedicated to accessibility. And that blog post is shown on the right with the sources at the bottom. So what I want to really talk about is, in contrast, here's a project that was started by the US federal government back in 2015. And over the past 6 years has been nurtured and iterated over time to become a robust web design system. It's a library of code, tools, and guidance that helps government teams design and build fast, accessible, and mobile-friendly government websites. So, part of the challenge is there are over 30,000 different federal agency websites. I showed you a few of them, but there's actually 30,000 for all the different things that the federal government does. But they all have like a very different experience. There's not a common design language. There's also a lack of shared tools and standards that make it easy to implement accessibility at a high standard. So what this team did, and these were designers, technologists, primarily at 18F and the U.S. Digital Service, which are federal teams. They launched the U.S. Web Design System initially in 2015 with a visual style guide and a UI component library. And from the start, they've made it a priority to have accessibility and mobile friendliness be part of what they're promoting with the design system. They also did things like create a color system that makes it really easy to pick accessible high contrast color pairs. The result is that this web design system now powers over 200 federal government websites. And by baking in components that are already accessible and mobile friendly, they're enabling government teams to spend less time reinventing the wheel. And they have a set of principles, and I'm showing only 2 of them here, but I think those really speak to like the ethos that went into this design system. It's about embracing accessibility. So this says accessibility affects everybody. Build it into every decision. Legal requirements are a necessary starting point, but that's only the beginning. Accessibility is about real people who use our services. And everyone who works on government websites has a role to play. And they also talk about earning trust and how federal websites and services need to build that trust by meeting or exceeding expectations, by being reliable, consistent, and honest. And it's really amazing to see how many government websites are building on this work. Here are a few examples that my colleagues at NAVA Public Benefit Corporation have built. So this is the U.S. Web Design System in action on the Veteran Affairs website, va.gov, and it's helping veterans find healthcare providers. Here's another example, helping Massachusetts residents get paid family and medical leave. So this is a website where if you live in Massachusetts, you can apply for leave to have a child, take care of a family member, or take care of your own health. And this was also built by my colleagues at NAVA for a new policy that went into effect at the beginning of this year. And you can learn a lot more about the US Web Design System on their website. They have extensive documentation. They recently came out with a report about what's next. They also talk a lot about their process on the 18F blog, and you can follow them on Twitter. So those are the 3 case studies. I think these are 3 examples of what are really many teams in government that are leading the way in inclusive design. And the thing is, government needs more product managers, designers, and engineers like you all. So I hope that I've gotten you a little bit interested in civic tech, or gotten you more excited if you're already in civic tech. We're hiring at NAVA. There's the URL. You can go check out what roles we're hiring for and learn more about our work. This is a picture actually of my work laptop, and you can see there's 6 stickers on the top right. And these 6 stickers articulate our company's 6 values. Think long-term, be active stewards, progress takes work, pursue the root cause, build together, and inclusion is essential. So I hope you'll come join me in building government services that work for everyone. Thank you so much, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have now or in the chat, or you can come find me on Twitter. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you so much. It has been so great having you here, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us. I think I can speak for all of us when I say that I'm impressed by the work that you've done to make government more human-centered. Anyone who has questions, feel free to submit that in the chat or in Q&A. We'll take a couple minutes to answer those. Go ahead and take the try. Okay. It doesn't look like we have any questions at this time, but you can continue the conversation about Michelle's session in Slack. Again, thank you so much, Michelle. We hope all of you enjoy the rest of the conference. Sessions are starting now, and you can find your session in the Sessions tab. If you know your session title or the presenter name, all you have to do is type in the search bar, and in the reception area, you can see which sessions are live and happening now. Great. I hope all of you enjoy the conference and hope to see you at the after party. Thanks all.
Thanks, Sam. Bye.
Bye, everyone.